Brewster Kahle sem hér hjá mér bandarískur tölvunarfræðingur, bókasafnsfræðingur og það má segja að hann sé einn af feðrum internetsins því að hlutir sem að hann fann upp þeir lögðu meðal annars grunn að internetinu. Hann mikil hugsjónamaður á sviði gagnavarðveislu og með stórar hugmyndir á því sviði. Welcome to Silver Ales, Brewster Kahle.
Thank you.
Could you just start off by telling me a bit about yourself, about your background? You were one of the pioneers of the internet, right?
Yes.
And then, you've taken it from there, and now you're very passionate about digitalizing information, about archiving the cultural heritage of the world.
Yes, I come from a technical background, and the question is, with this technology, how can we use it to do something that we'd be proud of? And the idea of building the Library of Alexandria version 2, the idea of having everything ever published, universal access to all knowledge, was something we realized 20, 30 years ago we could do. The idea of all of the books, all of the movies, all of the music, and make it available to anybody that wants to have it, is possible within our lifetime.
Yes.
And so this has been my life goal, and we're making good progress.
And the strange thing is if we take all the literature of the world, say everything that's been written, which is considered, we can actually fit it into a small box now.
Yes. The average book, if you have it in Microsoft Word or a PDF, is only about 1 megabyte. About 1 megabyte. Yes. So, and the largest library in the world is the Library of Congress, which has 26 million books. Yes. It fills many, 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 many buildings. And it just keeps overflowing. But if you had it in digital form, it's 26 million megabytes. It goes mega, yes, giga, terabytes. So 26 terabytes is about this much. Yes. And you can put it in one shopping cart. So you can put all of the books in the Library of Congress, all of the words in the Library of Congress, in a shopping cart. This we think is fantastic.
Yes. But your vision is that all of this information, all of this culture should be freely available.
Yes. Yes, the idea that we should have a library system that grows with the times. So that if you're a child in, say, Uganda, and you're very good at mathematics, that you can have access to the newest lectures of what's going on from Harvard University. Or if you're on an island off of Iceland, and you wanted to study something about your sagas, that you'd be able to have access to the original texts. So a library system that would allow interchange, but also working in parallel with the publishing industry, so that there's still money and incentive for writers to make great works. Yes. So libraries and publishing have always worked in parallel. And now is our chance to do this in the new world. Now that there are electronic books coming from publishers, yes, there can be electronic books from libraries.
And so this is the project you call the Internet Archive.
Yes.
But what are you doing in Iceland then?
The reason why I'm in Iceland is there was the deputy librarian, Thorsten, from the library had this brilliant idea. He said, you know, Brewster, we could go and digitize all of the books of Iceland and make it available to everyone in Iceland. And we did out the calculation, and it turns out there are only about 50,000 books that have ever been published in Icelandic. 50,000 books. We've already digitized over 1 million. We have over 2 million books on the Internet Archive website available for free. So the idea of doing Icelandic is quite doable. But there's a couple of challenges.
Yes.
One is to get access to it, to the books.
Yeah.
And within the National Library, Thorsten said, okay, we can take care of that. Can there be funding to be able to pay for the digitization? And I can describe a little bit of how you photograph books,
yes, yes,
and make it so it's readable. And the other is to find a way of distributing these in such a way that the writers and publishers would think that this is a positive thing to do.
Yes, it's always a question of copyright.
There's a copyright issue as well.
Copyright laws are very strict in the world, and I know
Yes.
that you have been challenging some of them even before courts in America.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the idea is to have a library.
Yeah.
And how do we have it so that everybody wins? Because what we want is lots of writers, lots of publishers,
yes,
lots of booksellers, lots of libraries, and lots of readers, without having one place control.
Yes.
That's the key. Can we have a market that works? And now, in the United States, what we've done is to digitize current books, all the way through Harry Potter, and make them available to the blind and the dyslexic. There's a special part of the law in the United States and most countries so that if you cannot read a book, it will talk to you. So we have taken these current books, read them into words, and you can put them on devices, and they will talk to you a little bit like this.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so now the blind and the dyslexic have over 10 times the number of books they had last year because of this project.
Yes.
But then how do we go further than that? And this is something that's only in the last year that ourselves, the Boston Public Library, a library in Guatemala, another library in the United States, have started lending books.
Yes.
So we digitize old books and we lend them electronically. So the idea is that you can have your access to your book on your screen,
Yes.
say, you're reading along, but in 2 weeks, it turns off.
It just dissolves.
It dissolves.
Yes.
So, and it's the same as basically returning the book, and then somebody else can have it.
Yeah, okay.
Then somebody else can have it. Somebody else can have it. So it's a lending one at a time. Now you say, why do you need to do that in the digital world? Well, the only reason is copyright.
Yes.
That this is what libraries have always done. Libraries buy books, and then they lend them out. And this system is working very well. And we think that this could be part of the system to make all of the Icelandic books available in some way to everyone in Iceland.
But you're actually digitalizing much more than literature. You internet pages, music, whatever. It's
Yes.
you sound like a mad collector.
Well, I don't know about the mad part, but certainly a collector.
Collecting everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we started by archiving the World Wide Web. In 1996, we took a snapshot of every website and every page on every website. Everyone. And we visited it, and it took 2 months. And then we started again.
Yeah.
And then started again. And it's getting to be very big now.
Yes.
But the idea is that you can actually collect up all of the works of humankind. So we started with the web, then we started collecting television. About 20 channels of television, starting about 10 years ago, 24 hours a day, at DVD quality. Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Iraqi, Al Jazeera, BBC, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, all around the world. And now we're up to maybe 50 channels. This we have not made very available, mostly because of cost reasons. But the idea of television news being accessible, we think is going to be very important. So then we did television, mostly to archive it. Then movies, music, and a big project with books. And we're working with, we have scanning centers where people are photographing books to scan them. They hold them, the book like this, and turn the pages by the people do. In 6 countries, where we have 23 scanning centers. So inside the Library of Congress itself, underneath the dome, there's a room. And in that room, there are about 25 people that are scanning books there, and as well in 23 other places.
But this is a lot of material. This is
Yes, isn't it fantastic?
yeah, it's a bit overwhelming. But Iceland, the project is then to archive the whole of Icelandic culture, is it?
Yes, that's the idea.
So you want to do more than literature? Starting with
Yes,
literature.
let's start with literature.
Yeah.
Then let's do your television.
Yeah.
I mean, why not, right? And if we can find ways to do the music and the other important things. But the idea is that this is really an Icelandic project. There's technology that's being supplied by the Internet Archive for free, because of this inspiring vision of your deputy librarian, that we would be supplying the technology. There's another person, Canadian, that's trying to help raise the money for the people that turn the pages.
Yeah.
And the cooperation of the cultural minister and the library here will be able to create a library of Icelandic for
Politicians hate
Icelanders.
spending money, especially in times like these. Will the taxpayers have to pay?
Well, we've been having many discussions over the last several days as to how to make it so that the taxpayers don't pay anything.
No.
So the taxpayers right now are paying some money for people that are unemployed. And I understand that there's some system for temporary small projects, like this, that to take people that are unemployed, give them some extra money so that they want to go to work, and use that total to be able to pay them to do this digitization. So it would not cost the government any more than they're paying now.
But you also have these, you're also connected with IMI, which is the
Yes.
Icelandic Modern Media Project
Initiative, yes.
initiative. Well, there we have the idea of using Iceland as a storage place for information.
Well, it's just a very good idea, and it's actually what brought this all back up again. Because this idea from the deputy librarian really came around a year ago. But then it sort of stalled because of the money, and people couldn't figure it out. But now with IMI, this idea, the Multimedia Institute, that Iceland is being seen as a good place not only to store Icelandic material, but to store material from all over the world. So we work with national libraries and other libraries from around the world and make a collection that's in San Francisco. But people don't want it just in one place. They want it in other places.
Yeah.
So we're working with the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. There's a European archive that's in Paris. There's another part of the Internet Archive in the Netherlands. But Iceland might have some of the right laws to have long-term historical preservation that has a good idea that this is an important historic thing to do, and be able to make an environment, not just because it's inexpensive energy, but also because it has the right laws and culture to go and think long-term.
IMI is, of course, about freedom of information.
Yes.
And
That's what libraries are all about.
yes, but IMI is a bit connected with WikiLeaks.
Yes.
Does that worry you?
No, not at all. What libraries do is they collect public information and they make them permanently available. That's what libraries have always done. And not always such that everybody likes them. And in fact, the thing that happens to libraries is they're, well, burned. And they're burned usually by governments that don't want them around.
Yes.
So libraries have always been on the role of the long-term memory. And some people want people to forget. And so libraries are on the side of long-term thinking. So collecting the World Wide Web, which we do, has things in it that reflect all of us. And this, we think, is an important aspect.
Being a bit of a history buff myself, I like very much your reference to Alexandria.
Yes, it's where it all started.
Yes, can you elaborate a bit on that?
So the Library of Alexandria was started by the Greeks after they conquered Egypt. And the idea was to collect one copy of all of the books of all of the people in the world. And by some measures, they got 75% of the way there. They made copies of everything. And it was a place of great flowering of intellect. So just they figured out that the world was round, how big the world was, they did geometry, all because they had influences from lots of different places coming together in Library of Alexandria. But the times changed. And the times changed, and there wasn't as much interest in having this universal knowledge. And the Library of Alexandria went away. So there was a series of destructions. But basically what really happened, as I understand it, is people were more interested in, well, one or two books, not about all books. And the thing that I think we should learn from the Library of Alexandria is having lots of knowledge, lots of cultures, lots of information, and a culture of learning, you can do great things. But the other is, don't just have one copy.
Yes. You are very passionate about this.
I am.
Yeah.
I think it's a worthwhile goal. I think it's something that if the last generation put a man on the moon, this will be remembered for millennia. But our generation, we can do is to make all of the information available, universal access to all knowledge. If we do that, it could live for centuries as one of the great works of humankind.
So, thank you for coming to Silfreyjus, Brewster Kahle. I imagine with your projects here that you will be coming back to Iceland.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I thank you very much.
Thank you.